Welcome to Chatting with the Philosophers from MTAL503 with your host, Virginia Stewart. With special guest, John Dewey, Paolo Freire, Bennett Reimer, David Elliot, and Randall Alsop. Hi, I'm Virginia. I'd like to introduce you to some of the philosophers and their philosophies from our class this semester. Please welcome my first guest, founder of Progressive Education, John Dewey. Hello, Dr. Dewey. Thank you for joining us today.
Hi, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here, but please call me John.
American philosopher, psychologist, and educational reformer John Dewey introduced the concept of progressive education as a replacement to traditional education, his term for learning that involves teachers imposing knowledge on students through textbooks, notes, and lectures. Dewey's idea of traditional education is not effective because students memorize information without understanding it and quickly forget it because it has no relevance. Progressive education involves hands-on experiences, projects, and learning through trial and error. John, walk me through this. Why should schools focus on social skills instead of content? What about the 3 R's? Surely those are more important than social skills.
Of course, content knowledge is important, but is it more important? I don't think so. Education is a social process. School is a social institution. It's an optimal platform for social reform. The main goal of education is not about learning specific content. The goal is to learn how to live and participate in society.
Hold on. When you say active participant, you mean the kid who pays attention and sits quietly and does what she's told? I love those students. They make my life so easy.
Well, not exactly. I understand how docile and passive students can make a teacher's life easier, but is that the point of education? To inculcate kids to fit into society, to shape tomorrow's leader, to inspire artistic or intellectual curiosity. Based on standard pedagogical practices, what qualities do we reward in children? Doesn't it follow that if children are taught to value these qualities, they will grow up to be adults that value them too?
Oh, I get it. If we teach democratically in school, kids will grow to appreciate and defend democracy when they're adults.
Yes.
But wait a minute. Docile and passive, unquestioning acceptance of authority, those aren't qualities of citizens of a democracy. Those are qualities for a dictatorship. But anyway, moving on. Please join me and welcome our next guest to the studio. Brazilian philosopher, educator, and author, it's Paolo Freire! Hi, thank you. Great to meet you. I am a big fan.
Likewise, bro.
Brazilian educator and philosopher Paolo Freire introduced the concept of problematization as an alternative to the banking system. Freire's term to describe the image of all-knowing teachers depositing information or knowledge into an empty vessel, otherwise known as the student's brain. As one might deposit something of value into a bank account. Information deposited in this manner is not actually learned and is quickly forgotten. Freire argued the banking system extinguishes creativity because the student doesn't have to think, only receive. Problematizing encourages critical thinking by not taking any information as a given and posing it as a problem or a question, allowing teachers and students to learn from each other. Welcome back. We're here in the studio with Dr. John Dewey, author of Child in the Curriculum, and Dr. Paolo Freire, author of Pedagogy of the Oppressed. Gentlemen, it is such an honor to have you here with us today. The pleasure is mine. So, Dr. Freire, please call me Paolo. Thank you. So, Paolo, walk me through this. Oppression is a big keyword for you. How does posing problems fight oppression? Isn't oppression already a problem? Well, problem in this context is about looking at things from a different perspective. In some cases, it's just questioning things we don't usually think to question. I'm not following. Can you give me an example? Sure. Tell me about classical music. Okay, like Mozart and Beethoven? Great example. Where were they from? I should know this. Europe. somewhere. Are all classical composers European, or just those two? No, they're all pretty much from there, the European canon and all. Why are they classical composers and not European? Oh, they're European too. It's just the name of the era. The era? Oh, so it's a time issue. I see. All of the composers from that time are classical? Well, time and place. I suppose there might be regional classical, but real classical is from Europe. Oh, bingo! Wow. The population in control says what is standard and what is classical. And logically, by comparison, everything else is not standard, not classic, which is assigned a value judgment to it without us even being aware of it. Yet, it affects us all the same. It's kind of scary to think how many ways we're being influenced with subtle, and well, not so subtle, choices of words, phrases, and imagery. It is, but it's a lot harder to control people when they're paying attention to what's going on around them. You know, it's funny how I used to think your theories were almost interchangeable, and in a lot of ways there are a lot of crossovers. John, your theories on progressive education seem to be focused on building an infrastructure of democracy through child-centered, hands-on experiences that start with the child's interests and grow from there. And Paolo, I now see that your educational theories deal with bringing a voice to the marginalized by getting them to think critically about what they consider to be givens. With you, it's about problematizing that will lead to problem solving with the goal of ending oppression. Okay, it's time to join our panel. Our panel today is comprised of prominent music philosophers who are ready to dive in and help us find some answers. Let's meet our panel. Bennett Reimer is visiting us today, American music educator and philosopher. In his book, A Philosophy of Music Education, Reimer's viewpoint was that only good music, or music evoking a feeling, should be taught. Ideal teachers will have a firm pedagogical base and sensitivity, and all will learn music because it helps us develop self-knowledge. Next, we have American music educator and philosopher David Elliot, author of Music Matters, A Philosophy of Music Education. Reimer's former student takes some similar and sometimes not so similar views on questions such as, why is music significant in life and education? Who are the teachers and who are the students? What is important to learn and how should it be taught? The purpose of music education, according to Elliot, is to develop certain cognitive processes that otherwise aren't addressed by school curriculum. Music is knowledge. Also joining us is American music educator and mentor to our dear Dr. Lewis, Randall Alsop, author of Remixing the Classroom Towards an Open Philosophy of Music Education. According to Alsop, open forms of education encourage democracy, participation, and teacher-student relationships that are open and evolving to enhance student curiosity, engagement, and understanding by acknowledging and designing activities that speak to student interests. By moving away from a general consensus about what is good and what is bad, teachers can focus less on who is musical and who is not, and instead model curiosity and engagement. And we're back! I'm thrilled to have this stellar lineup of philosophical powerhouses in the studio with us to tackle some of the big questions. Let's get started. We talk all the time about the importance of music, but it's a hard concept to explain. So, what is music? I'll take this one. Music is an aesthetic experience and a basic mode of cognition. It is a cognitive process that interprets organized sound and connects them with experienced feelings and specific meanings. David, do you have something to add? Yes, thank you. I agree with Bennett that music is cognitive, but it's also something that people do. Music is praxial in that music making, music listening, and musical outcomes are not separate processes. Musical action is a non-verbal form of thinking and knowing. One can't engage in musical listening without also having some experience in music making. And it's not music, it's musics. Interesting. So, Bennett, you see music as an aesthetic cognitive process, and David, you see musics as praxial, thought and action together. Yes, that sounds about right. That sums it up. So, what is the point of learning music in school, or learning music at all?
All learning should combine theory and practice. Active self-expression happens through the senses. Ongoing observation, planning, and reflection. School should reflect life. If a student is interested in music, then giving music a place in school will assure healthy personal interests.
Music is a form of non-conceptual cognition that deepens and refines the mental sensation of feeling. We teach it in schools to help students realize their humanness. It should be taught because studying music involves unique cognitive challenges and thought processes that don't happen any other way. All education is a form of praxis and an instrument of humanization against the culture of silence. We have to be careful, though, because education can be a vehicle for social change or for further oppression. I agree that music teachers' focus should be on social justice. The challenge is that the school paradigm's been set up for closed-form interactions. It's a place where teachers traffic in musical rights and wrongs, saying no, or exercising authority, or demanding submission. Randall, your open and closed concept is super awesome, but maybe for this conversation, we could just say structured and freely? Gentlemen, please. Randall has an excellent point. A good teacher can make all the difference in the world. So, what makes a good music teacher? We are our own best teachers. Education works best when students and teachers can learn together. I could not agree more.
I think kids need to learn the basics, but should be free to follow their interests from there.
But that's the problem, isn't it? Whose basics? We need to take other cultures' basics into consideration. Teaching the Western canon's basics plays into the dominant culture. Right. By not acknowledging another possible set of basics, we're playing into the banking system and continuing the pattern of oppression. Hold on a second. Can we at least agree that a music teacher should have a high degree of musical sensitivity and teaching experience with a broad foundation of musical knowledge? Not just musical sensitivity. A music teacher needs a high level of musicianship in education. They need to be skilled at improvisation and be a reflective practitioner. Who's to say the teacher even has to be a musician? Of course, having a teacher be a musician is traditional, but is it necessary? It seems closed-minded to assume that only a musician can be a good music teacher. A good teacher is a guide on the side, allows discovery through curiosity, and learns along with the students.
You know, that's a very interesting idea. Students should be taught to innovate and deal with changes. A non-musician teacher would not be able to assume the authoritarian master-teacher role. Come to think of it, it could be a very democratic environment.
That is an interesting idea. But a teacher needs to know enough about the subject matter to be able to give the learner a positive experience. The value for the student is in the experience. Not to mention, it's important to teach good music. Good music is expressive music that's been deemed good by people who are trained and qualified to make that determination. Musicians are trained in music. Good music is in the ear of the beholder. I like it. I can deal with it as long as the kids can play the music too.
That works for me.
Okay, that's our show. Thank you to our panel for your insights and your contributions to music education. And thank you for watching this experiment in coding. And thank you, Dr. Lewis, for such a wonderful semester.